Good evening, my darlings. It is October the 3rd, 2025, and we are in Halloween and spooky season. Tonight's offering, The Jar by Bradbury. Shall we begin? It was one of those things they keep in a jar in the tent of a sideshow on the outskirts of a little drowsy town. One of those pale things drifting in alcoholic, forever dreaming and circling with his peeled, dead eyes, staring out at you and never seeing you. It went with the noiselessness of late night, and only the crickets chirping, the frogs sobbing off in the moist swampland. One of those things in a big jar that makes your stomach jump, as it does when you see a preserved arm in a laboratory vat. Charlie stared back at it for a long time, his big raw hands hairy on the roofs of them, clenching the rope that kept back curious people. He had paid his dime, and now he stared. It was getting late. The merry-go-round drowsed down to a lazy mechanical tinkle. Tent peggers back of the canvas smoked and cursed over a poker game. Lights switched out, putting a summer gloom over the carnival. People streamed homeward in cliques and queues. Somewhere in a radio flared up and then cut out, leaving the Louisiana sky wide and silent with stars. There was nothing in the world for Charlie but that pale thing, sealed in its universe of serum. Charlie's loose mouth hung open in a pink wheel, teeth showing. His eyes were puzzled, admiring and wondering. Someone walked in the shadows behind him, small besides Charlie's gaunt tallness. "Oh," said the shadow, coming into the light bulb glare. "You're still here, bud?" "Yeah," said Charlie like a man in his sleep. The carny boss appreciated Charlie's curiosity. He nodded at his old acquaintance in the jar. "Everybody likes it. In a peculiar kind of way, I mean." Charlie rubbed his long jawbone. "Ever considered selling it?" Carny Boss's eyes dilated, then closed. He snorted. "No, it brings customers. They like seeing stuff like this for sure." Charlie made a disappointed "oh." "Well," considered the Carny Boss, "if a guy had money, maybe." "How much money?" If a guy had," the Carny Boss estimated, counting fingers, watching Charlie as he tracked out one finger after another. "If a guy had 3, 4, say maybe 7 or 8. Charlie nodded with each motion, expectantly. Seeing this, the Carny Boss raised his total. "Maybe $10, or maybe 15. Charlie scowled. Worried, the Carny Boss retreated. "Say a guy has $12. Charlie grinned. "Why, he could buy that thing in the jar," concluded the Carny Boss. "Funny thing," said Charlie. "I got just $12 in my denims, and I've been reckoning how looked up to be I'd be back down at Wilder's Hollow if I brung home something like this to set on my shelf over the table. The folks would sure look up to me then, I bet." "Well now, listen here," said the Carny Boss. The sale was completed. With the jar put on the back seat of Charlie's wagon, the horse skittered his hooves when he saw the jar and whinnied. The Carny Boss glanced up with an expression of almost relief. "I was tired of seeing that damn thing around here anyway. Funny thing, but hell, I'm big-mouthed so-and-so. So long, farmer." Charlie drove off. The naked blue light bulb withdrew like dying stars. The open, dark country night of Louisiana swept in around the wagon and horse. There was just Charlie, the horse timing his grey hooves, and the crickets. And the jar, of course, behind the high seat. It sloshed back and forth, and the cold grey thing drowsily slumped against the glass, looking out but seeing nothing. Charlie leaned back to pet the lid, smelling of strange liquor. His hand returned, changed and cold, and trembling excitedly. Yes, sir, he thought to himself. Oh, yes, sir. In the hollow, numerous grass-green and blood-red lanterns tossed dusty light over men huddled, murmuring, spitting, sitting on the general store property. They knew the creak bumble of Charlie's wagon, and did not shift their raw drab-haired skulls as he rocked to a halt. Their cigars were glowworms, their voices were frog mutterings on the summer nights. Charlie leaned down eagerly. "Hi, Clem. Hi, Milt." "Hello, Charlie," they murmured. The political conflict continued, and Charlie put it down the seam. "I got something here. I got something you might want to see." Tom Cardamy's eyes glinted green in the lamplight from the general store porch. It seemed to Charlie that Tom Cardamy was forever installed under porches in shadow, or under trees in shadow, or if in a room, then in the farthest corner, shining his eyes out to you from the dark. And every time they looked at you, they laughed in a different way. "You ain't got nothing we wants to see, baby doll." Charlie made a fist and looked at it. "Something in a jar," he went on. "Look kind of like a brain, kind of like a pickled jellyfish, kind of well, come see for yourself." Someone snicked a cigar into a fall of pink ash and ambled over to take a look. Charlie grandly elevated the jar lid, and in uncertain lantern light the man's face changed. "Hey now, what the hell is this?" It was the first thaw of evening. Others shifted lazily upright, leaned forward. Gravity pulled them into walking. They made no effort except to put one shoe in front of the other to keep them from collapsing upon their unusual faces. They circled the jar and its contents, and Charlie, for the first time in his life, seized on some hidden strategy and crashed the glass lid shut. "You want to see more? Drop around my house. I'll be there," he declared generously. Tom Cardamy spat from his porch side. "Ha! Let me see that again," cried Grandpa Medno. "Is it an octopus?" Charlie flapped the reins. The horse stumbled into action. "Come on around. You are welcome. What will your wife say? She'll kick the tar off our heels." But Charlie and the wagon were gone over the hill. The men stood, all of them, chewing their tongues, squinting up the road in the dark, and Tom Cardamy swore softly from the porch. Charlie climbed the steps of his shack and carried the jar into its throne in the living room, thinking that from now on this lean-to would be the palace with an emperor. That was the word, emperor. All cold and white and quiet, drifting in his private pool, raised, elevated upon a shelf over a ramshackle table. The jar, as he watched, burnt off the cold mist that hung over this place on the rim of the swamp. "What have you got there?" Teddy's thin soprano turned him from his awe. She stood in the bedroom door, glaring out, her thin body clothed in faded blue gingham, her hair drawn in a drab knot behind her ears. Her eyes were faded like the gingham. "Well," she repeated, "what is it? What's it look like to you, Teddy?" She took a thin step forward, making a slow, indolent pendulum of hip, her eyes intent upon the jar, her lips drawn back to show feline milk teeth. The dead, pale thing hung in its serum. Teddy snapped a dull blue glance at Charlie and then back at the jar, once more at Charlie and once more to the jar. Then she whirled quickly. It looks just like you, Charlie," she cried, and the bedroom door slammed. The reverberation did not disturb the jar's contents, but Charlie stood there longing after his wife, heart pounding frantically. Much later, when his heart slowed, he talked to the thing in the jar. I work the bottom land to the backbone every year. And she grabs the money and runs off down home, visiting her folks 9 weeks at a stretch. I can't keep hold of her. Her and the men from the store, they make fun of me. I can't help it if I don't know how to hold on to her. Damn it, but I try. Philosophically, the contents of the jar gave no advice. Charlie, someone stood in the front yard door. Charlie turned, startled, then broke out a grin. It was some of the men from the general store. Charlie, we thought, well, we came up to have a look at that stuff you've got there in that jar. July passed warm and it was August. For the first time in years, Charlie was happy as tall corn growing after a drought. It was gratifying of an evening to hear boots shushing through the tall grass, the sound of men spitting into the dirt prior to the setting foot on the porch, the sound of heavy bodies creaking the boards, and the groan of the house as yet another shoulder leaned against its frame door, and another voice said in a hairy, wrist-wiped mouth clean, "Can I come in?" With elaborate casualness, Charlie invited the arrivals in, and there'd be soapboxes for all, or at least carpets to squat on. And by the time crickets were itching their legs into the summertime humming, and the frogs were throat swollen like ladies with goiters shouting in the great night air, the room would be full to bursting with people from all the bottom lands. At first, nobody would say anything. The first half hour of such an evening, while people came in and got settled, was spent in carefully rolling cigarettes, putting tobacco neatly into the rut of the brown paper, loading it, tamping it, and as they loaded and tamped and rolled, their thoughts and fears and amazements for the evening, it gave them time to think. You could see their brains working behind their eyes as they fingered the cigarettes into smoking order. It was a kind of rude church gathering. They sat, squatted, leaned on plaster walls, and one by one, with reverent awe, they stared at the jar upon its shelf. They wouldn't stare sudden-like. No, they kind of did it slow and casual, as if they were glancing around the room, letting their eyes fumble over any old object that happened into their consciousness. And just by accident, of course, the focus of their wandering eyes would occur always at the same place. After a while, all eyes in the room will be fastened to it, like pins stuck in some incredible pincushion, and the only sound will be someone sucking a corn cob, or the children's barefoot scurry on the porch planks. Maybe some woman's voice would come, "You kids, get away now, get away!" And with a giggle like soft, quick water, the bare feet would rush off to scare the bullfrogs. Charlie would be up front, naturally, on his rocking chair, a pillow under his lean rump, rocking slow, enjoying the frame and looking up to ness that came with keeping up the jar. Teddy, she'd been seen way back of the room with the women folk in a bunch, all grey and quiet, abiding their men. Teddy looked like she was ripe for jealous screaming, but she said nothing, just watched men tromp into her living room and sit at the feet of gentle Charlie, staring at his here holy grail-like thing. And her lips were set cold and hard, and she spoke not a civil word to anybody. After a period of proper silence, someone, maybe old Gramps Medno from Crick Road, would clear the throat from a deep cave somewhere inside of himself and lean forward, blinking, wet his lips, and there'd be a curious tremble in his calloused fingers. This would cue everyone to get ready for the taking to come. To the ears were primed. People settled like sows in the warm mud after a rain. Gramps looked a long while, measured his lips with his lizard tongue, and then settled back and said, like always, in a high, thin old man's tenor, "Wonder what it is. Wonder if it's a he or a she, or just a plain old it. Sometimes I wake up nights, twist on my corn matten, and think about that jar setting here in the long dark. Think about it hanging in liquid peaceful, with pale like animal oyster. Sometimes I make a maw, and we both think on it." While talking, Gramps moved his fingers in a quavering pantomime. Everybody watched his thick thumb weave and the other's heavy-nailed fingers undulate. We both lay there thinking, and we shivers. Maybe a hot night, trees sweating, mosquitoes too hot to fly here, but we shivers just the same and turn over, trying to sleep. Gramps lapsed back into silence, as if his speech was enough from him. Let some other voice talk the wonder, awe, and strangeness. Duke Mama from Willow's son wiped sweat off his palms on the rounds of his knees and softly said, "I remember when I was a runnel-nosed kid, we had a cat who all the time was making kittens. Lord Almighty, she had a litter any time she jumped around and skipped a fence." Duke spoke in a kind of holy softness, benevolent. "Well, we give the kittens away, but when this one particular litter busted out, everybody within walking distance had one, two, our cats by gifted already." So Ma busied on the porch with a big 2-gallon glass jar, filling it to the top with water. "Ma," said Duke, "you drowned them kittens. I remember I just stood there. The kittens mewed, running around, blind, small, helpless and funny, just beginning to get their eyes open. I looked at Ma and I said, 'Not me, Ma, you do it.' But Ma turned pale and said it had to be done, and I was the only one handy, and she went off to stir the gravy and fix the chicken. I picked up one of the kittens. I held it. It was warm. It made a mewing sound. I felt like running away and not ever coming back." Duke nodded his head now, eyes bright, young, and seeing into the past, making it new, shaping it with words, smoothing it with his tongue. "I dropped the kitten in the water. The kitten closed his eyes, opened his mouth, trying for air. I remember how the little white fangs showed. The pink tongue came out, the bubbles with it, in line to the top of the water. I know to this day that way that kitten floated after it was all over, drifting around, slow and not worrying, looking out at me, not condemning me for what I had done, but not liking me either." Oh, hearts jumped quick. Eyes swiveled from Jake to the shelved jar, back down and up again apprehensively. A pause. Jaddo, a black man from Heron Swamp, tossed his ivory eyeballs like a dusky juggler in his head. His dark knuckles knotted and flexed. "Grasshoppers alive! You know what that is. You know what it is, I tells you. That be the centre of life. Sure enough, Lord believe it me so." Saying it tree-like rhythm, Jaddo was blown by the swamp wind. No one could see or hear or feel, save himself. His eyeballs went round again, as if cut free to wander. His voice needed a dark-threaded pattern, picking up each person by the lobes of their ears and sewing them into one unbreathing design. From that lying back in the Mindaboo sump, all sort of things crawl out. It put out a hand, it put out feet, it put out tongue and horn, and it growed, little bitty amoeba perhaps. Then a frog with a bulged throat fit to burst, yeah. He cracked his knuckles. It slobbered on to its gummy joints, and in it am human. That am the centre of creation. That am Mimbadoo Mama, from where we all come 10,000 years ago, believe it. 10,000 years ago, whispered Granny Carnation. It am old. Lucky me. I don't want to worry no more. It no better. It hang like a pork chop in frying pans. It got an eye to see with, but it don't blink 'em. They don't look fretted, do they? No, ma'am. It no better. It known that we done come for it, and we was going back to it. What colour eyes does it have? Grey, no, green. Colour hair, brown, black, red, grey. And Charlie would give his drawing opinion. Some nights he'd say the same thing, sometimes not. It didn't matter. When you said the same thing night after night in the deep summer, it always sounded different. The crickets changed it, the frogs changed it, the thing in the dark changed it, Charlie said. What if an old man went back to the swamp, or maybe a young kid, and wandered around for years and years, lost in all that dripping? On the tails and the gullies, in them cold, wet ravines, in the night sky turning pale, and making cold and shrivelling up, being away from the sun, he'd keep withered away, and up finally into a muck hole, and lay in the scum, like a maggot. Skeeters slipping in sump water. Why, for all we can tell, this might be someone we know, someone we passed a long time ago. A hissing from among the womenfolk back in the shadows. One woman standing, eyes shining, fumbled for her words. Her name was Mrs. Tridden, and she murmured, "Lots of little kids run stark naked to the swamp every year. They runs around and never comes back. I almost got lost myself. I lost my little boy Foley that way. You don't suppose." Breath was snatched through nostrils, constricted and tightened. Mouths turned at the corners and bent hard, clenching muscles. Head turned on celery stalks, and necks and eyes read her horror and hope. It was Mrs. Tridden's body wire taut, holding onto the wall back of her with her fingers stiff. "My baby," she whispered. She breathed out. "My baby, my Foley, is that you, Foley? Tell me it's you, baby. Tell me it's you." Everybody held their breath, turning to see the jar. The thing in the jar said nothing. It just stared blind, white upon the multitude. A deep in the raw-boned bodies, a secret fear, like a spring thaw, and the resolute calmness and belief as easy humbleness, was gnawed and eaten by that juice, and melted away in a torrent. Someone screamed. It moved. "No, it didn't move. It's just your eyes playing tricks. Honest to God, it moved, it moved. Hush now, it's been dead a long time, maybe since before you were born." "He made a sign," screamed Mrs. Tridden. "That's my Foley, my baby you've got there." Sobbing broke from her. "Now, Mrs. Tridden, there now. Set yourself down. Stop shaking. Ain't no more your child than it is mine. There, there." One of the womenfolk held her and faded out the sobbing into jerked breathing and fluttering of her lips in butterfly quickness. When all was quiet again, Granny Carnation, with a withered pink flower in her shoulder-length grey hair, sucked the pipe in her trap mouth and talked around it, shaking her head to make her hair dance in all the light. All this talking and shoving words, like not, we'll never find out, never know what it is. If it's magic, if it's a trick like a magician do at shows, once you find it, it ain't no more fun. The innards of a jackabob will come a-collecting around here every 10 nights or so, talking, and stands to reason if we spied out what the damn thing is, there'd be nothing to chew about there. So there." "Well, damn to hell," rumbled a bull voice. "I don't think it's nothing." Tom Cardamay, standing as he always did in the shadows, out of the porch, just his eyes staring in, his lips laughing at you dimly, mocking you. His laughter, he said it was nothing. In that jar but a bunch of old jellyfish from a sea cove, and rotting and stinking fit to whelp. "You might be jealous, Cousin Cardamay," said Charlie. Ha! snorted Cardamom. Just you come running round to watch your dumb old jaws talk about nothing. You notice I never set foot inside or took part? I'm going home right now. Anybody want to come with me? He got no offer of company. He laughed again, as if it were a bigger joke. So how many people could be so far gone? And Teddy was raking her palms with her fingernails, away back in the corner of the room. Charlie saw her mouth twitch and was cold and could not speak. Cardamom, still laughing, rapped off the porch with his high-heeled boots, and the sound of the crickets took him away. Granny Carnation gummed her pipe. Like I was saying before the storm, that thing on the shelf, why, it couldn't be any sort of thing. It could be anything. Lots of things. All kinds of things. I don't know. Grass snakes and children and mist and all the nights and days in the dead cannebrake. Why is it to have one thing? It could be anything. Maybe it has lots. Maybe it has lots of things that it could be. And talking ran soft for another hour, and Teddy slipped away into the night on the track of Tom Cardamom, and Charlie began to sweat. They were up to something, those two. They were planning something. Charlie sweated warm all the rest of the evening. The meeting broke up late, and Charlie bedded down with mixed emotions. The meeting had gone off well, but what about Teddy and Tom? Very late, with certain star coveys shuttled down the dark sky, marking the time as if after midnight. Charlie heard the slushing of the tall grass parted by her pendulum hips, the heels tacked soft across the porch, into the house and into the bedroom. She lay soundlessly in bed, cat eyes staring at him. He couldn't see them, but he could feel them staring. Charlie, he waited. Then he said, I'm awake. Then she waited. Charlie, what? Bet you don't know where I've been. Bet you don't know where I've been. It was a faint, derisive sing-song in the night. He waited. She waited again. She couldn't bear waiting long, though, and continued. I've been to the carnival over in Cape City town. Tom Cardamom drove me. We talked to the carny boss, Charlie. We did. We sure did. And she sort of giggled to herself secretly. Charlie was ice cold. He stirred upright on an elbow. She said, We found out what it is in your jar, Charlie, insinuatingly. Charlie flunked over, hands to ears. I don't want to hear. Oh, but you've got to, Charlie. You've got to hear this, Charlie. It's a good joke. Oh, it's rare, Charlie, she hissed. Charlie flunked and said, Go away. Go away. No, sir, Charlie. Why, no, Charlie, honey. Not until I tell. Go, he said. Let me tell you. We talked to that carny boss, and he liked to die laughing. He said he sold that jar and what was in it to some hick for $12, and it ain't worth more than $2 at most. Laughter boomed in the dark, right out of her awful mouth, an awful kind of laughter. She finished it quick. It's just junk, Charlie. Rubber, papier-mâché, silk, cotton, boric acid, that's all. Got a metal frame inside, that's all it is, Charlie. That's all it is, she shrilled. No. He sat up swiftly, ripping sheets apart with big fingers, roaring. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear, he bellowed over and over. She said, Wait till everyone hears how fake it is. Won't they laugh? Won't they flap their lungs? He caught her wrists. You ain't gonna tell them. You wouldn't want me to be known as a liar, would you, Charlie? He flung her off and away. Why don't you leave me alone, you dirty, dirty, jealous, mean of everything I do? I took shine off your nose when I brung the jar home. You didn't sleep right till you ruined things. She laughed. Then I won't tell anybody, she said. He stared at her. You spoiled my fun. That's all that counted. It don't matter if you tell the rest, I know. And I'll never have no more fun. You and that Tom Cardermy, I wish I could stop him laughing. He's been laughing for years at me, while you just go tell the rest, the other people now. Might as well have your fun. He strode angrily, grabbed the jar so it sloshed, and would have flung it on the floor, but he stopped trembling and let it down softly on the spindly table. He leaned over it, sobbing. If he lost this, the world was gone, and he was losing Teddy too. Every month that passed, she danced further away, sneering at him, funnying him. For too many years, her hips had been a pendulum by which he reckoned the time of his living. But other men, Tom Cardermy for sure, were reckoning time from the same source. Teddy stood waiting for him to smash the jar. Instead, he petted it and stroked it and gradually quieted himself over it. He thought of the long, good evenings in the past month, those rich evenings of friends and talk moving about the room. That at least was good, if nothing else. He turned slowly to Teddy. She was lost forever to him. Teddy, you didn't go to the carnival. Yes, I did. You're lying, he said quietly. No, I'm not. This jar has to be something in it, something besides the junk you say. Too many people believe there's something in it. Teddy, you can't change that. The carny boss, if you talked with him, he lied. Charlie took a deep breath and then said, Come here, Teddy. What do you want? She asked sullenly. Come over here. He took a step towards her. Come here, Teddy. Keep away from me, Charlie. Just want to show you something, Teddy. His voice was soft and low and insistent. Here, kitty. Here, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. It was another night. About a week later, Grandpa Medno and Granny Carnation came, followed by young Juke and Mrs. Pridden and Jadoo and the black man, followed by all the others, young and old, sweet and sour, creaking into chairs, each with his or her thoughts, hope, fear, and wonder in mind, each not looking at the shrine, but saying hello softly to Charlie. They waited for the others to gather. From the shine of their eyes, one could see that each saw something different in the jar. Something of the life and the pale life and afterlife and the life in death and the death in life. Each with his story, his cue, his lines, familiar, old, but new. Charlie sat alone. Hello, Charlie. Somebody peered into the empty bedroom. Your wife gone off again to visit her folks? Yeah, she run for Tennessee. Be back in a couple of weeks. She's the darndest one for running, you know, Teddy. Great one for jumping around, that woman. Soft voices talking, getting settled, and then quite suddenly walking on the dark porch and shining his eyes in at the people. Tom Cardermy. Tom Cardermy standing outside the door, knees sagging and trembling, arms hanging and shaking at his side, staring into the room. Tom Cardermy not daring to enter. Tom Cardermy with his mouth open but not smiling, his lips wet and slack, not smiling, his face pale as chalk, as if it had been sick for a long time. Gramps looked up at the jar, cleared his throat, and said, Why, I never noticed so definite before. It's got blue eyes. It always had blue eyes, said Granny Carnation. No, whined Gramps. No, it didn't. They was brown last time we was here. He blinked upward, and before another thing. And it's got brown hair. Didn't have brown hair before. Yes, it did, sighed Mrs. Tridden. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. Tom Cardamy shivering in the summer night, staring in at the jar, Charlie glancing up at it, rolling a cigarette casually, all peace and calm, very certain of his life and thoughts. Tom Cardamy alone, seeing things about the jar he never saw before. Everybody seeing what he wanted to see, all thoughts running in a fall of quick rain. My baby, my little baby, thought Mrs. Tridden. A brain, thought Gramps. The black man jiggers his fingers. Midimam bamboo, mama. A fisherman pursed his lips. It's a jellyfish. Kitten, here, kitty, kitty, kitty. The thoughts drowned, falling in Duke's eyes. It's a kitten. Everything and anything, shrilled Granny's wheezing thoughts. The night, the swamp, death, the pale things, the wet things from the sea. There was a silence, and then Grandpa whispered, I wonder if it's he or a she or just a plain old it. Charlie glanced up, satisfied, tamping his cigarette, shaping it to his mouth. He looked at Tom Cardamy, who would never smile again, in the door. I reckon we'll never know. Yeah, I reckon we won't. Charlie shook his head slowly and settled down with his guests, looking and looking at the jar. It was just one of those things they keep in a jar in the tent of a sideshow on the outskirts of a little drowsy town. One of those pale things drifting in alcohol, forever dreaming and circling with its peeled dead eyes, staring out at you and never seeing you. Thank you, my darlings. I truly hope you enjoyed The Jar from 1944. It's one of those creepy little stories. I wonder what is in the jar. I don't think we will ever find out. Now, if you like what I do, you can give me a thumbs up. And if you really like what I do, you can always give me a follow and come back next week for another terror tale from the pen of Ray Bradbury. Good night, my darlings. Good night.